welcome everyone. My name is Colin Campbell and I'm the editor of Journal of Advertising Research. And I'm super excited today to be here to discuss a brand new paper that came out recently this year. I'm here today with Ross and also Farnoosh. Ross is at the University of North Texas and Farnoosh is right near me. She's at San Diego State University. And we're here today to talk more about their new paper that came out, Is Your Brand Protected? Assessing Brand Safety Risks in Digital Campaigns. So I really love this paper because of the fact that it's I really think, an important topic and one that's been understudied as well too. But to start us off, could one of you or both of you give us a bit of an overview of what your paper goes through, what your article goes through now, and discusses and finds?
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of alluded to it, that it is kind of this growing concern amongst advertising that a lot of them are using what's called programmatic advertising, where they allow algorithms to kind of place their ads for them. And there's a lot of benefits to that, right? They get a lot of impressions at a lower cost, and they don't necessarily need as many resources dedicated towards advertising sometimes to be successful. However, on the flip side, there can be some negative potential effects as well if their brand is displayed next to what they consider to be offensive content. So basically, our paper kind of took a two-pronged approach on that. First, we asked a bunch of practitioners, did a practitioner survey. Hey, are you concerned with brand about these risks? Are you aware of them? What specific types of content are you concerned about? What are you potentially trying to do to address this? And then we took it into a laboratory, did a lab experiment, and showed that, hey, yes, this threat is real. If your brand is displayed next to offensive content, we could get a little bit more into that. We actually chose what we thought was a relatively conservative test, not super offensive content as compared to some of the content they were concerned about, and did find that yes, willingness to pay decreases, attitude towards the brand, attitude towards the ad decreased as well for consumers when they saw that negative content as compared to positive content, basically.
That's really interesting, right? Oh, cool. So it's sort of a whole new type of context effect, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned the conservative test, right? So tell us more about what you did as a conservative test and what you think could be the more even extreme version of that.
Yeah, so I think when brands really started being concerned with this content, it was when their brands were being displayed next to truly awful things, right? Like terrorism, hate speech, nudity, and stuff of that nature, those incidental negative exposures. And we kind of had them rate what specifically they were concerned about. And those were the things they were most concerned about. Also illegal drugs, biased content. But we just chose negative news stories. It was a little lower on their list because we thought if we saw an effect with something that's relatively benign, we thought it'd be, kind of a conservative test, like I said. So for us, we just looked at a news story. The positive news story was a police officer working with children in an underserved community, kind of improving their perception of the local police force. And it was really a heartwarming video. And then, unfortunately, the negative video was a dentist that was performing some unnecessarily harmful procedures on children. So, and they were just both news stories that were 92 seconds in length. So,
and you saw like a really big effect coming through in terms of, how people responded to the ads that were placed in those particular contexts.
Exactly, yes. And we also showed a strong difference in willingness to pay as well. So they'd be willing to pay less. The ad we used was McDonald's. They'd be willing to spend less at McDonald's than those that saw the positive video as well.
That's interesting. And do you have any sort of hypotheses around what do you think is driving that effect? Like, is it an attribution that they're supporting the news story, or is it something else you think that might be causing that to happen? Or
yeah, I think Farnoosh, was it the what's that attitude we used in I'm trying to think of that.
The negative effect.
Yeah, just that negative affect in general is just spilling over. Like you said, Colin, I mean, it's kind of building off some of that context effect research that we've kind of known to some extent for a while. But yeah, so basically attitude towards the ad, or excuse me, attitude towards the environment spills over towards attitude towards the ad.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So I guess the major implication then is just advertisers should be concerned where their ads are being placed. But I'm guessing there might be some other nuances as well too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So any other sort of nuance on that, or is it just sort of the general kind of this is concerning, and advertisers need to be more aware of what's happening with where their ads are going?
So just a couple other little nuances we found. Basically executives are a lot more concerned with this than like individuals at the manager or like director level that are generally more actually tasked with like implementing these policies. And the executives are actually willing to spend more on these, if they could guarantee safe placement, but they're not necessarily the ones that actually make those daily decisions. A couple other things we found, shoot, just lost my train of thought, but basically,
if I could jump in, Ross.
Yeah. Farnoosh, you go for it. Thank you.
So in our survey of brand managers, we also asked them if they're willing to pay more to kind of to make sure that their ads is placed in a safe environment. And we got a significant response that yes, many of these advertisers are willing to actually pay, I think, up to 50% more price premium to ensure that their ads is placed in a safe environment. So I think there's this opportunity even for advertising platforms and to kind of like pursue this more safe environment, because it seems like there's desire from advertisers for that, and it can be over time hopefully be beneficial and profitable for these platforms too, if they make sure that the ads are not placed in unsafe environment.
And just a quick follow-up on that too, we actually just saw like a week or two ago, I don't know how long ago it was implemented, but very recently Facebook rolled out a new process where when you like want to display ads with Facebook, you actually have 3 different tiers of the level of brand safe, and the more safe placements are more expensive. So they are trying to implement some of those policies right now.
That's interesting. They read your paper. There you go. Read your article. Yeah.
AAR is doing a good job of getting a good press. So maybe. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. To what extent, I'm curious too, because I looked into this a little bit a couple of years ago. I was interested in this as well too, and I didn't see a lot of like providers that were offering those kind of options. Is Facebook Meta one of the first ones to do this, or are there other ones that are offering similar stuff, or is it still kind of unexplored? If you don't know, it's okay too, but I'm just curious.
No, I mean, we had some discussions with, again, it was a different context, it was native advertising platform, but it seems like the platforms already have this built into their system for like very extreme content. So obviously it's very extreme, like nudity or tourism. So it seems like they already do some sort of vetting. But again, I'm not sure if something that all platforms, seems like not all platforms do that. Like, again, we have seen examples on YouTube that ads were paired with this unsafe content, which made a lot of advertisers actually pull out from YouTube for that reason. So it seems like there's some vetting happening, but it's not obviously enough. And it's like, again, different platforms have their own. It's not a universal thing that they apply. Different platforms have their own probably measure of what is considered unsafe, what is safe. Again, that could be debatable, and it also can be contextual. Like some political content may seem unsafe depending on people's political orientation. So again, it's not a very, I mean, it seems like there is some vetting happening, but it's obviously it's not enough to prevent from those negative consequences.
Yeah. And one thing they've tried to implement is what they call keyword blocking. So if a certain word is in the video, in the article, yada, 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 they're just not displaying with it. But some evidence kind of suggests that that's actually really, really conservative. Like over 40% of New York Times articles would be not allowed to be advertised on and stuff, because sometimes it is just a word in passing, right, in a sentence or something. So that's almost too conservative. So that one of the main ways people try to combat this doesn't necessarily seem to work as well. So
that's interesting. So like there is a need based on what you're finding with your quantitative, experiment, right? And there's also definitely a desire to pay as well too. So it seems like a perfect sort of market opportunity, that advertisers could really be embracing to make more money and also be serving a real, solving a real problem as well too. That's very cool. Yeah. I'm so curious now. This is a nice lead in as well too. My next question of like, where did the idea for this come from? Right? Do you just have really good intuition with like what these business ideas and hot topics are, or did something lead you to this? Or
I wish we had that, but no, it really came from a discussion with someone in the advertisement community. So we were working with a company. It's a the ad serving platform for another project. And when we work with practitioners, one of the questions that we ask them usually to kind of get to see what are the interesting topics maybe for research is that we ask them a simple questions that what is about your business that keeps you up at night? So what are the things that you're concerned about? And
I love that question.
and then the CEO that company actually mentioned is brand safety, that it seems to be a big concern for them and also so they work with different advertisers, and it seems like all of them share this concern about brand safety and where their ads are placed. So we were very excited. So we went back to literature and we searched for that. And surprisingly, we couldn't find any research that addresses that issue in terms of online advertising environment. So we thought this could be a perfect opportunity to kind of introduce this to the literature and also do some exploratory research on that. So hopefully we can continue working on that and explore more avenues related to this topic.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. I'm curious as well too, because I know, like, at least for myself, like my research runs into challenges and roadblocks and things that are difficult going through the process. Did you encounter any in yours in this particular article or in doing this article, or was it relatively smooth?
It never is smooth, right? So
glad it's not just me. That's good. Yeah.
No.
So again, one of the things I just mentioned that we were so excited. We couldn't see any research on this topic, so we were excited to work on it. And then we sent it to review process. We kind of got pushed back that, hey, this is not a new topic. So there are some seminal papers on advertisement that look at specifically like TV advertisements. For example, they looked at what's the impact of like happy versus sad TV programs. So if your ad shows up with those programs, and there was like pushback on like, hey, this is not a new topic. It has been studied many years ago. So that was, I think, one of the challenges. So we always have in research, we have to show that the contribution and the importance of topics. So we kind of had to build more on this. This is a new area because the company doesn't have much control. Like with TV advertisement, you have more control over, you decide where your ads wants to be showed. But here we have like millions of websites and you can't really control with this kind of programmatic advertisement. So we wanted to kind of try to motivate the topic by the importance of the context and how important it is for online advertisement community.
Yeah.
So that was one of the main challenges.
Yeah, and I think Farnoosh might even be able to speak to this too. But at one point we thought, oh, could we actually partner with a company and see if they're struggling with these effects in the real world? And Colin, I know it's shocking, but no firm wanted to willingly chose to have their ads displayed next to offensive content and see how it hurt them. So that was a little bit of an issue going through the process too.
So I actually tried to do a small experiment on my own. So I helped some family businesses with their advertisement. And actually my sister-in-law has a beauty salon and I helped her with her Google advertisement. And I kind of pitched to her, hey, will you be interested if I run some banner ads for you on different websites, no cost to you? We covered it's for research. And not that I wanted to intentionally hurt my sister-in-law's business, but she was okay with that. But again, it didn't work because it was very hard. So we had to identify some specific websites and we just couldn't get enough impressions. And that's the beauty of this kind of programmatic one. They help you to scale up. So they give you access to all these different millions of impressions, different websites, which when we tried to do it in a controlled experiment with a specific website, it didn't really work. So we're hoping to have some field study to enrich our findings, but that didn't work for us. And as Ross mentioned, companies obviously are not very interested if you tell them you want to put their content paired with a negative, unsafe content.
Yeah, I can imagine them being kind of leery, right? Although probably there's some that they're doing it accidentally anyways, right? So maybe there's potentially some data that could be mined from the stuff that's already happened. I don't know, but no, definitely it's there's some effects that are just tough to study with an industry partner for sure. Yeah. What about the interviews, right? You had an impressive, first study as well too. You went through and did all of those interviews and talked to practitioners, right? Was that challenging to go through and find all of those to talk to you, or was that pretty smooth? Or
So for that one, we went with a marketing agency because again, it's always hard to get, if you want to run it on your own, it's always hard to get a good response rate. So we work with a advertising agency, a market research firm company, the name Sentiment, and we have worked with them on other products. So they have a consumer panel, but they also have a business community panel. So we kind of give them what kind of people we want to target, and they helped us with that. So it's more expensive than running studies on MTech, but it was a good context for us. We could get a sample size in a relatively timely manner to be able to run our study.
oh, that's awesome. Very good. Sounds very useful too. Yeah. So next big question to kind of round out here is where to next? And another reason I love your article is the fact that I think that there's so many different opportunities to, extend this and look at different facets of it. So what are some of the ones that you think are you're most excited to look at next? Yeah.
One for me that I think would be really cool is how long these effects actually last, right? So in our experiment, it was pretty much, yes, immediately we know brand equity and attitudinal loyalty, willingness to pay decrease.
Drop. Yeah.
Does that last for weeks? Does that last for months? We don't know. So we think that'd be a really neat follow-up study. Also, another potential one is the difference in brands, right? In our experiment, we used a really well-known brand. We used McDonald's. Pretty much everyone knows McDonald's. It's one of the most commonly known brands and logos. And you could probably see arguments either way, that a big brand's going to suffer more from that, or a smaller brand's going to suffer more from that, right? I think you could potentially make an argument either way. So I think it'd be interesting to see if someone followed it up looking at that as well.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
And I think one other interesting avenue to look at is that, okay, we know this is a problem, but what are the mitigation strategies that firm can use to kind of mitigate these negative effects? So what are they doing? So we had one question very briefly asking in our manager survey, but I think looking at that into more depth would be very helpful. So what are the specific ways what are the specific recommendations we can have for practitioners on how they can, reduce this potential harmful effect on their brand? I think that would be another interesting and managerially relevant and helpful piece of topic to study.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I wonder as well too, what about categories? Do you think that there's certain product categories where there'd be less of an effect, or certain types of brands or products? I imagine some might be more sensitive to this and other ones might be, less sensitive, and maybe they could actually even take advantage of the fact people don't want to advertise here. Do you think that could exist or no?
I think it certainly could. And you can think of just certain industries that are already under more scrutiny potentially too, right? So actually it kind of came out in this managerial survey we did, something as simple as, hey, we are an alcohol brand. Well, it doesn't, for most people, a PSA about drunk driving doesn't necessarily impact their brand, right? But for us, that could. So are there certain industries that people just have higher opinions of than others? And that could impact these results? I think absolutely.
Yeah, and to kind of add to what Ross says, again, this unsafe context depends on, I think it's category specific too, what type of products you are offering. They might be, again, I think Ross mentioned a very good example. So for different product categories, different words can be unsafe. So there's definitely interesting to look at that as well.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm curious as well too, and I don't know if you have any, you may not have any sort of guesses as to why this is the case, but I'm just kind of curious about it. But what do you think could be reasons why the executives were more correct, it seemed, in being more concerned about this, as opposed to the more the employees who were going through and sort of implementing these different things? Because it sounded like there was less concern from them, but more concern from the executives. Any sort of guesses as to what do you think might have been driving that, or?
So I've got a potential idea. I don't know how correct it is, but programmatic advertising makes those people that have to implement advertising, it makes their lives easier, right? So maybe it's just something as simple as the executives don't necessarily understand how hard it was placing ads in all these different locations previously, whereas those at the front line say, hey, maybe there are some negative impacts of programmatic advertising, but it also gives us so many more impressions at a lower cost and makes my job a lot easier. So I don't know how correct that is, but that's one potential explanation, I think.
Okay, yeah. I'm curious as well too, because you mentioned like keywords being used right now to kind of screen for where ads are placed. Uh, Everyone's talking about like AI right now, right? Especially with ChatGPT and things like that. Do you think that there's a potential to leverage those kind of technologies, or there's smarter ways to potentially be thinking about where ads are being placed going forward?
I think there is a huge potential because with these techniques, AI and machine learning, I think we can have better understanding on the context, because when you go with keywords, it's kind of, as Ross mentioned, like there are a lot of content that might be blocked because of those, they use a specific keywords. But if you can look at the context of discussion, which seems this like text analysis tools can help us to better understand the context beyond just looking for keywords. So then that might be a more, I think, very helpful to kind of being able to identify the truly unsafe content versus just like some content that mentions a specific keyword. So I think that there's a huge potential to kind of help to identify the context better than what we do just with keywords.
Awesome, cool. Well, you have been absolutely wonderful to talk to you. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. Is there anything else that you think would be useful to mention, or anything else you want to bring up before we round out today?
No, and thank you so much for the opportunity. We appreciate it. And if there are questions, we will be happy to talk with people if they want to contact us. I'm sure they have the email, so we'll be happy to discuss ideas with anyone who is interested in this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And for anyone listening, we think we're just kind of introducing the topic to the literature and would absolutely love if you followed up on this research as well. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's tons of space to do so. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. It was great having both of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.